amazing, this little journey we've been on, season number 3. Um, I'm reaching over to Indiana today. I have Amy O coming in from Bloomington, Indiana. Amy, thank you so much for hopping on here today and chatting with us a little bit about your music.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'm very excited about this new record that's going to be dropping. What do we say? May 10th. Mirror Reflect. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But I like to start off these episodes with kind of a little backstory of your first kind of dabblings with music and where you started to feel like music was going to be a part of who you are as time evolves.
Yeah. Well, I started really young. I come from a musical family. And so when I was 5, my parents said that I could pick out an instrument to play and take
Hmm.
lessons. I could choose whatever I wanted. So I chose violin and I studied Suzuki violin for about till I was about 12 or 13.
Hmm.
Um, and I also did a lot of singing, and my mom is a choir director, and she was teaching me how to harmonize at an early
Fun.
age. And we were singing rounds together and
Cool.
like that. So it was just like very much part of my childhood. And then in high school, I started teaching myself guitar kind of casually.
Hmm.
Uh, and just, I wasn't really writing songs, but just playing around with it a tiny bit.
Right.
And when I went to college, I was staying at a friend's house and they had a 4-track recorder.
Hmm.
And I just was in the room with the 4-track, and basically it inspired me to kind of write some songs so that I could record them. And
Right.
yeah, I feel like it just sort of built from there. I didn't really play out for a long time. I just kind of
Hmm.
worked on it on my own. And then when I
Right.
was about 26, I started playing shows more, and just kind of like built from there.
Right. Right. And when you were first, encountering a 4-track, like what sound were you trying to build? Like, did you have an idea of the kind of music you wanted to play?
Yeah, well, I was really inspired by like the K records scene.
Hmm.
And my brother was in 2 bands kind of coming out of that, Lake and Kickball, great like bands from Olympia, Washington. And so I was aware of that from a young age through him. And I just really, I'd say like Mira, and like the microphones or Mount Erie,
Right.
that kind of
Right.
sound was really
Hmm.
inspiring. So I was kind of going for that. But I also, yeah, I was very like inspired by, I guess just my experience with, like chorus, like being in choir
Right.
and
Right.
putting a lot of harmonies together.
Yeah. And when you do that, it's great that you pinpoint that because it I've been kind of listening to your back catalog in preparation of talking with you, and there is a ton of you always have a harmony in there of some kind, right? In most of your songs. I won't say all of them, but it seems to be something you like to do is put multiple vocal and playing around with those kind of harmonies. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think in part it's because I've felt a lot of comfort in that area, like, just harmonizing with something, as I said, that I did since I was a kid. And
Hmm.
so when I was starting out, I didn't have a lot of technical skill with the guitar or other instruments. So, but I had a lot of composition ideas and production ideas in my head. So I
Hmm.
feel like I could just make that happen vocally. It was just like my accessible way of doing that.
That's cool. And I was looking at the Bandcamp page, your Bandcamp page, and I got a chance to listen to some of them, but these records that came out between February 2012 and April 2013, and they were all songs of a month, right? That you would, and full, I mean, they seem to be full records that were name your own price. Just what was the the seed behind the creation of those first kind of, I'm going to take a month and write a whole record.
Yeah.
What was that about? Because that seemed really cool, and I love the first listen through of them. They're really raw and like they get you right away, like as soon as you start playing them.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, I feel like that those albums are just kind of hidden like in the background and not a lot of people have heard them. But basically I have you heard of Fun a Day? It's like a
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you choose something, some sort of creative project
Right.
every day for the month of January. And so my friends and I decided to do that in, I guess 2011 was the first year, and I really liked it. And so then I was so into it that I decided in 2012 to do it as a like a year-long project. So I did January, I wrote a song every day for a month. April, July, and October. And then in the 2 months off, I picked like my favorite songs. So it'd be like 10 to 12 songs from the month. And I
Hmm.
recorded them and made an album. So yeah, so I made 4 albums that
Wow.
year. And actually it was I was going through a really hard time because my really close friend was going through cancer at
Mm,
that time. And
mm,
so I think in a lot of ways it was a way of helping me deal with that. And like I kind of needed to do something radical and creatively
mhm.
deal with like a hard
Right.
situation.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I read that you love to make, like you consider yourself in the arts realm and just making stuff. Which is always inspiring. I help teachers kind of establish maker spaces in their schools, and having that craving to make is really contagious. And it really kind of inspires the people around you. Um, which brings me to kind of, you did something similar with Girl Rock Bloomington. Now, it's a community group that you would help assemble or assembled, and what was like what you were trying to get to with that, organization of bringing in these young girls and helping them with their making and their art and their processes and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so before I lived in Bloomington, I lived in New York and I volunteered at a girls rock camp there.
Hmm.
And it was really awesome. And it actually inspired me a lot as an adult, like probably just as much as the kids.
Right.
And then I ended up working at that organization for about a year. So anyway, when I moved to Bloomington, I initially got a job at a like an art center for teenagers, and I was
Okay.
there for several years. And then that place sadly closed down, just
Hmm.
like lack of funding and stuff. And so when that happened, I decided to start Girls Rock Bloomington
Hmm.
because there wasn't one here and I had experience with it. And also from
Right.
working at the teen center, I had a lot of connections in the community. And like I had experience with grant writing and
Hmm.
nonprofit leadership. So yeah, so I basically decided to kind of go out on a limb and start the camp here. And that was
Hmm.
5 years ago.
Wow,
And it's been going really well and
it's
developing and
amazing.
turned into like we do year round after school stuff and yeah, and I think I
It's
wanted to
amazing.
do it. I always worked with kids, but
Hmm.
I was really craving doing what I actually love and care about with kids rather than just, being in a school setting.
Right, right. And like, what do you tell the kids about you, how you are inspired by the arts, and how, like, does your story come into play when you're interacting with these young, soon to be women about their art and their identity? Like, how do you encourage or advice that you give to them
Mhm.
in hopes that this knowledge can keep getting passed down?
I think in a lot of ways, I really take the approach of just relating to them as far as like, oh yeah, that was really hard for me, or I didn't know how to do that. Like kind of
Mm.
um actually like really trying to take myself out of any sort of role of like an expert
Right.
and just being like showing them a model of like someone who also has struggles and insecurities and
Mm.
didn't feel like they were very good at their instrument when they started, and then
Mm.
just pushing through that anyway and like continuing to put creativity as something that you really prioritize in your life.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I whenever I talk with kids, they still have this idea that creativity is like you got it or you don't. Like you're
Yeah.
artsy or you're not. And that it's not like a skill that you develop through practice. Like
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
baseball player or a opera singer. And they always tend to be quite shocked that like they have growing up, you'd think, oh no, kids are gonna have open mindsets, they'll be willing to like, oh, I can change. But until they learn that idea, I find that it it evades them a little bit.
hmm Yeah, I think it's interesting because I have a 4-year-old right now, and she's just starting to like draw a lot, and she's really interested in learning how to write letters and stuff like that. And
Mm.
she's starting to look at me a lot for me to praise what she's doing. And
Right.
like, of course, I really want to do that, but I also have heard that that sometimes that can actually like set them up in the future for just putting too much emphasis on what other people think,
Right.
and
Right.
putting like their self-esteem in the hands of other people. So
Yeah.
I try to like be more like, oh, comment more on like the process. Like it looked like you were really
Yeah.
enjoying doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very smart. Very smart. Yeah. Too much praise tends to actually unmotivate,
Yeah.
and lowers resilience in kids.
Right. Yeah. And I
Studies
think
have shown,
exactly. And I think it can set them up for what you were talking about, where they're like, oh, if I don't get praise, then I'm just gonna assume I'm bad at this and just
Right.
stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it true that are you still teaching a songwriting course at Ivy Tech? Are you still doing that now?
I'm not doing that now. I've done that in the past. And
Hmm.
yeah, I kind of it's nice with running Girls Rock. I'm able to sort of cycle through different workshops depending on like my current inspiration. So yeah, I've done a variety of like songwriting workshops, but I'm not doing any at the moment.
Okay. And if I were to ask you, like a new singer-songwriter, still, bedroom poppy, still kind of in their rooms, not really sure about it, what advice do you give to budding songwriters to, again, not to just all praise, but to support their growth as songwriters? What's some of the advice that you might give to one of those
Um,
buds?
I would say to experiment with a lot of different prompt ideas.
Mm.
Like don't get attached to one way of approaching a song,
Mm.
and sort of like create little games out of it.
Mm.
Like I'm going to go out and write down like 10 things I hear people say, and then I'm going to come home and write a song based on that, or things like that. And then another thing, this is kind of just like a vague thing, but
Hmm.
I've told people where I'm like, if there's something that you're feel like seems just a little off to you, or but you're feeling kind of lazy, or you're like, you kind of know like you could try harder, like go ahead and go back and like spend that extra time on it. And don't take the easy way out.
Right, right. So crafting, and you were saying, and I was reading something about the new record that you were really focused on the process this time around, much more than the end product.
Mhm.
Um, what was your process for this latest record that's about to come out? Was it different than your previous records, your full length records in the past? Can you talk to that a little bit, and if it changed, in what ways it might have changed?
Yeah, definitely. It was really different from the studio albums that I've put out, which is like the last 3 albums that I've
Right.
done. I think in a large part because it was A, during like the early years of parenthood, and B, during the pandemic. So that just
Hmm.
like inherently created a different structure to my life.
Hmm.
But yeah, basically, I used to, prep everything with a band beforehand and then just go into the studio and just like get it all down and feel really rushed and often like was pretty stressed during the process and like I not to say I didn't enjoy it at all, but it was like there was a lot of stress
Right.
um it's just like it's a lot of pressure, I think,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
financially and logistically and everything.
For
So
sure.
anyway, I was just feeling like I'm just like I am done with music being stressful. Like I can't do it anymore. Like it's supposed to be for fun. And so
Yeah.
I really like went back to basics and was like, what would be fun? Like I
Mm.
need this to be fun. And if like anxiety is starting to creep into the process, like then I'm going to stop and like just start my plans over and rework it.
Oh,
And yeah, so that was kind of a big
it's
um
interesting. Yeah.
shift.
Yeah.
And it ended up making it like I thought I was gonna make a new album and put it out probably like 2 years ago. So it ended up
Mm.
like making it a much longer process.
Right.
But it was totally worth it. And yeah, I basically was just like, I think what would be fun would be to go over to my friends' houses and also just be at my house and just like collaborate kind of more one-on-one with people instead of working
Mm.
with a full band.
Wow.
Um, and then also just have time to like really sit with the music and, maybe like a year later be like, oh, I'm going to go back to that recording and like change this
Mm.
or add this. And yeah, kind of have
Right.
like the luxury of time.
Right. Right. And did you appreciate having that time, or did it slow things down, or did it actually enhance what you feel you ended up on tape?
Um, I think I definitely appreciate it. I think what I wanted was to feel that I was more in the music, like, and
Mm.
like it was just more my ideas and the way that I really think about music could like that vision could just be shining a little more clearly.
Right. Right.
And that when I would hear it, I would like really hear myself in my life and
Mm.
my heart. Yeah. And so I think in that way, like it really feels like a success to me.
Cool. And I mean, this might be an obvious question, but how did motherhood change your process? I mean, I'm sure it had no choice but to change. But what were some of those changes and for the good, that actually kind of awakened something inside you that you hadn't experienced yet before?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, like it's such like having a kid is just such a identity like storm, like it really it just flips you upside down.
Hmm.
Um, and so I feel like when my daughter was 4 months old, I did a song a day a month project.
Right.
Because I was like, which sounds crazy to do when when she's that little, but it was just like little ditties. And I
Hmm.
just felt like it made me aware of how much songwriting is like such a home for me to go back to and like a place of stability. Like it brought me a lot of comfort. So I think there was that. And then also just like, I don't know, it's kind of like one of those like weeds that grows through the concrete. Like
Hmm.
it was like that. Like it was like I just had to learn how to be a lot more resilient about my creativity and like less precious and be like get a song idea and be working on it and have a lot of interruptions and like somebody, maybe like screaming at me and then like having to go put the guitar down and go deal with that and come back to it. And yeah,
Finding the little moments when you can tap into that creative outlet a bit. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely. No,
And
that's really cool.
just like
Yeah.
her playfulness, definitely like just became a part of the record too, and like a part of the songs. And I include like field recordings of like her like laughing or her talking. And I the record starts out with a little field recording of like the sound of her heartbeat when I was pregnant with her. So
Wow.
I that felt really special.
Right. What a great way to kind of memorialize that this time frame, of coming into motherhood with with this amazing record. And I really want to just touch on this record a little because I've listened to it about five, six, seven, many times. Um, and I do find there is this um shift that's gone on, where I connect with you more through this new record. The old records were great, but they were more like indie rocky almost, this freewheeling. My partner says like it sounded like the Breeders, like that. Whereas this new record is a little bit more reflective and it makes you think a little bit more contemplative. Um, in retrospect, now that the record's kind of been put on tape and is ready to be released soon, what are your thoughts and feelings about it? Looking back on it now as this kind of chunk out of your life.
Hmm. On the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a pretty hard few years, in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. So
Yeah.
I think it feels tender. Um, but it also feels like it makes me feel very proud of myself because I know like how hard it was
Okay.
to to actually like bring this together through everything, like just going through like mental health struggles
Hmm.
and the pandemic and yeah, and just and also just like running a nonprofit and then just finding space to like still be an artist and being a parent. Like it's just really hard, I think, to make that space. So
Absolutely.
I think just yeah, like a big pat on the back for myself
There you go. No,
for
I
getting
agree with you.
it together.
I really think that it's a great marker in your timeline of your records. And I really think people are going to be able to connect with it because it does bring a lot of those feelings that we all tend to have of that struggle that was going on during the pandemic and changing lives and kids growing up. And like, it's really heartwarming and it feels like a human record where we can identify with it and relate to it really easily. So I want to thank you for assembling these songs. They have been really a nice listen to, and I love this record. And I really wish you all the best with the March 10th release date.
Oh, thank you. May 10th.
May 10th. Sorry,
Yeah,
May 10th.
that's
May
okay.
10th. Um,
Thank you
and
so much. I really appreciate you like listening and it just means a lot. And I really want to like I do want to connect with people on that human level more. And I think that's like
yeah,
kind of the biggest goal with putting out the music is having connection. So like if
yeah.
anyone wants to like, chat about postpartum or like the pandemic or whatever, like I'd love to talk to you.
Can have like weekly Zooms, of just let's
Yeah, let's
talk.
hang out. Let's talk.
Yeah. Like I remember doing that during the pandemic, like with teachers, because we were all isolated. And I was like, we got to find a way where we can still feel human in some way, even if it's through technology. We'll just
Yeah.
ignore we're talking through screens. Um, but it did tend to help, particularly teachers that were in isolated areas where they just needed like can I just have some water cool talk with you? It's just
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
gather around the water cooler and let me just, bitch and get stuff off of my, out of my head. Um, what's 2024 looking like? So the record comes out, and what else can we expect from Amio coming down in 2024?
Yeah. I think mostly I'm just going to be playing shows, around to promote it. Right now, what I have planned is an album release show in Bloomington on May 11th, and then I'm playing a festival in Bloomington, June 8th. And yeah, I'll be kind of planning stuff from here. Don't have
Cool.
anything nailed down yet, but yeah, mostly I also have a lot of other new material
Hmm.
that I'm ready to start working on the next thing. So
Cool.
we'll see how
Cool.
long that takes.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, again, Amy, thanks so much. This has been a real treat. Great stories. Great talking to you too about your music and the influences and all that. It's been a real pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Polaroid in the hall, pale arms and a look that says it all. Rip the tape with my teeth, put it on the wall, like a 12-year-old on a timely quest, with a postcard of Patti Smith and my hometown bridge. Did you know her daughter's a grief specialist? Maybe I should call her. We're not getting any younger. Are you gonna have a baby at the hospital or in your house? Those early days seem so easy now. Married at first sight, milk me like a cow. PPOCD, it's all a big cloud. I underestimate my capacity for making lemonade. Big bear at the trash, heartbeats out of my hand. I yell, stay out. There's a room at the back of our hiding spot. You'll know it's locked if it's horizontal. I know it'll stop a feather from a ball. Baby bird couldn't see past a fool. Newspaper cut and ripped out. I admit you were running, but somehow found healing in hundreds of walks around the park and a phone call on auto every Friday at noon, slipping away incognito when she leaves the room. I'm piecing it together again. Nothing is lasting.